As mindfulness has increased in popularity, so have the misconceptions about it. So I'm going to start with talking about some of these misconceptions, what mindfulness is not. Mindfulness is not a self-improvement technique. It's not just a tool for stress management, or a way to talk about being more careful, as in the way people say, I want to be mindful of the time. It doesn't just mean living more intentionally or being more woke. All of these descriptors are related to mindfulness and its benefits, yet none of them encompass the full scope of the practice. Mindfulness is also not a tool to manipulate our brain, to fix us or make us into someone better. It's not something that can be given to us by anyone else, mastered in a short amount of time, or learned simply by reading books about it. So, what is mindfulness? Well, one way to talk about the practice of mindfulness is to say that it is a way to access our innate and wise, compassionate awareness. Meditation teacher Jon Kabat-Zinn calls this our non-judgmental awareness. Now don't worry, this does not mean that to practice mindfulness we need not to have judgment, confusion, unkind feelings, etc. Those are supranormal. It means that by practicing mindfulness techniques that are designed to help us access our innate wisdom and compassion, we can begin to have a different relationship with our experiences. We can be with what is with less judgment, without repressing, avoiding, distracting, resisting our experience. So, if we have a difficult emotion, instead of berating ourselves or trying to get rid of it, we might notice that with practice, over time, we start to feel a greater sense of care and warmth towards ourselves, or even towards others who may be experiencing something similar. This is an example of our innate compassion. Or if we feel confusion or a lack of clarity in our lives, we may notice that with practice, over time, we start to get more curious, and instead of tightening around the confusion or judging ourselves for not having it all figured out, we might notice a greater sense of wonder and maybe even excitement to explore what we don't yet understand. This can lead to insights that we never expected. This is an example of our innate wisdom. So it is true that mindfulness can help us live with less stress, be more careful, intentional, even woke. It can also improve, with quotes, our emotional and physical well-being, our performance, our ability to bounce back from challenges. But these are all side effects or potential benefits that come with having greater access to who we already are. They are not self-improvements. I'll explain why this distinction is so important in just a minute. Okay, regarding the impacts of mindfulness on our brain, it is true that repeated mindfulness can actually change the structure of our brain. Sarah Lazar, a neuroscientist at Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School, was one of the first scientists to take the anecdotal claims about the benefits of mindfulness and test them in brain scans. In participants who practiced mindfulness for 40 minutes a day over an 8-week period, she found structural changes in the brain in areas related to mind wandering, learning, memory, emotional regulation, empathy, and much more. The main problem with the view that mindfulness is a tool to manipulate the brain, to fix us, or to make us somehow better, is that in the actual practice of mindfulness, it's absolutely essential that we bring acceptance to who we already are and our experience as it is. The opposite of mindfulness is trying to change or manipulate who we are. So by this reasoning, we can deduce that the structural changes found in the brain of a meditator are not an indication that they have been fixed or improved, but instead that these meditators now have more access to their innate capacity, the larger awareness of who they already are. This is tricky and nuanced, but I think it's an important point to clarify. We don't want to go into the practice trying to fix ourselves, reject who we are, or further distance ourselves from our innate capacity for deep wisdom and unconditional compassion. The last thing I'll mention is that in order to begin to understand mindfulness and appreciate its depth, it's helpful to know where it comes from. Mindfulness was not born in the West. It draws on over 2,600 years of Buddhist practices and teachings from the East: India, Nepal, China, Tibet, Burma, and many more Eastern countries. In more recent years, the fields of psychology and neuroscience have helped to shape what we now know as a modern form of mindfulness. So as you explore these practices, please consider learning more about the roots of mindfulness. The millions of people in the East and now in the West who have been practicing, teaching, and preserving these powerful practices that we now have access to. This is an immense gift.